All right, we are live. How's it going, gang? Good to have everybody back. Let's see. We'll make sure the comments are up. All right. Hey, we got Paul with us today, Paul Strada, and he's a friend of a good connection of mine, Andrew Silvers, and they've known each other for a while here, and they've got a podcast, going and have some great discussions. Just talking before we went on air here, it's kind of like. I told him, how we started, Brandon Bay and John Brewer, and me, Tony, and, Paul and Andrew. It's kind of the same thing. It's just a good dynamic. It creates good conversations. Everybody kind of gets better, understands, each side of things. And for me, I feel there's a lot more value in that sometimes than, everyone wants to chase margin, but that comes with it. I think, what was it? I saw a great quote today. It was like, you get paid with two coins. Cash and experience. If you work for, to get paid in one and experience, the cash will come. That's part of it. And I think it's something that a lot of people miss and don't really, I guess, understand, especially when you're new, how much that can create a career, something that's, there's longevity to, as opposed to just that I need it now. Now telling kids right out of college, with student loans and things like that. It's tough, but at the end of the day, I think, they end up getting it. There's something that clicks down the road. So, everybody knows Tony, unfortunately. But I'm going to have Paul kind of introduce himself, give us a little background and then kind of what he's got going on here. And we'll get started from there.
Hey guys, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. I'm Paul Estrada, based here in Anaheim, California. So, reeling a little bit from the Dodgers getting swept out of the playoffs the other day, but we're getting past that. But I spent the vast majority of my career as an enterprise shipper, a company here based out of Southern California. Spent my entire career in supply chain logistics, kind of bounced around customer service, operations, procurement, you name it, kind of run the gambit in terms of my experience there. Left for a while and went on the other side of the table, actually, and went on a capacity provider side, learned that side of the business. And then, just talking to my different connections out there, and Andrew and I knew each other a little bit. I had done business with him previously, done business with his dad in the past. And, we were sitting down at Food Shippers one day and, had a kind of conversation and as we were leaving said, hey, what's up with that podcast? And, that turned into the Freight Pod, which is what we're doing now. So it's been a blast. We're having a lot of fun doing it.
I'll bet. I'm going to have to check that out. I've seen it and I've been I really want to get this on my schedule of things to listen to, because I'm telling you, anybody that sits down with Silver, and no offense, Paul, I don't know you well enough to insult you, but anybody that has time to sit down with Silver, that is a really cool conversation. He doesn't know me necessarily, but I did get to spend some time with him at a conference once, and that dude, I would love to have an hour just to pick his brain. So I got to tune in and check this out.
Yeah, it kind of goes both ways. It's not just us drilling our guests. It's really a two-way, three-way conversation, really. And he's got fantastic experience. I come from the shipper side, so I think similar to you guys, right? So we're bringing that mixed dynamic, and we're really just, selfishly, it was something we wanted to do. He's at a crossroads in his career, and I kind of was asking myself similar questions about my career. We said we've got these phenomenal networks that we've built, respectively over the last 15 years for me, 15 years for him, and always wanted to do something with that. And so, figured, hey, let's bust out the old school Rolodex, so to speak, right, and start dialing and getting some people that we know on, and just start picking their brain about career, about life, about education, about things that make them tick. And it's not as much about just spitting pure freight game, although, it is called the Freight Pod. So there is a degree of that, but it's really more about, again, just going on a career journey. And we're just trying to learn. And we said, hey, if we're going to talk to some of the greatest minds in the industry and learn, let's take some people that are interested in going on this journey with us. And so that's what we decided to do. And like I said, we're having a great time.
That's awesome. I'm old enough to have had a Rolodex. I remember I
always use that reference, and I don't know why.
It was the flat one that they all.
I was like, that's a nice watch.
You flip it back and forth.
Right.
Those were great, but yeah, it was basically a 3x5 card flipper. But so what kind of people are you going for? Like, we try to keep ours pretty low key.
Right. Yeah, you have me on here, so that makes sense.
Well,
No, but I think
You're not-
Tony's. I think it's not necessarily the people that we keep low key. I think it's just kind of our approach. I mean, we've had
ground floor, not
people-
necessarily CEOs, but guys that are in the trenches, guys
Yeah.
that do the job, right?
But then we've
Yeah.
had that too, though. You look at when Steam was getting all that, getting all that hate and they're laying people out. And I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, do you want to come on the podcast and just explain it?" And he's like didn't know for sure at first. I'm like, this is what we do, man. Like, we just come on, we talk, we give everybody like a forum to come on, and we had a great conversation. And there's a lot of people that maybe are in the middle of something that want to come on and just kind of chat. And it's opened up a lot of different types of guests for us too, because I think it's important, because in the world of LinkedIn, there's a lot of people wanting to get the likes and the comments and everything, right? Kind of grow their presence, and they kind of understand the algorithm, but they also kind of fall into what people are going to comment on or like or whatever. Like, oh, I know this post will get a lot of comments. I don't know a ton about it, but I'm going to put my stance out there and then see. And we've kind of stayed away from that. Because we like to kind of stay in the middle and hear what everybody's side is. Because I've been, I've sat in rooms and had conversations where I was like, man, I never thought I'd ever view business this way. I try to stick to my, who I am. But at the end of the day, sometimes people just don't understand those decisions you got to make and the things you got to do, and maybe the explanations that go along with them. To Tony's point, up to this point, we've kept it fairly, fairly grassroots and everything. But I think that's from the very beginning. It's why we named it "Hold My Beer, We're Talking Freight." That's all it was.
Yeah.
Not scripted. We're going to have great conversations, and the people that have those conversations are the ones that are in the weeds, kind of. The ones that are out there doing their thing, and that's what people wanted to hear. Because all these shows, they were bringing on, the CEO of TQL or the CEO of this or that or whatever, and it's like, that's interesting, but like the CEO of like a TMS or something like that, like there's only so much that really kind of keeps your attention. When a lot of the people that are on here are ones that are trying to learn, and when we went away from it, what was it, Tony? Was it 2022? We were kind of went away from it. It got real busy.
Yeah, when everything. Yeah.
We went away from it for about 6 months because we got so busy. And I mean, people are just hitting me. I didn't realize it. And there were so many people that were new to the industry, because we all know, like, one of the biggest parts of this, our negatives in this industry is training and how bad it's just a tough thing to do. And so, yeah, it was crazy to start seeing how many people were like, hey man, I was really learning a lot from you guys, and, and all that stuff. And so we decided to kind of bring it back in a different type of format, but we keep it laid back, man. I mean, sometimes, man, there's some shows we get done and I'm like, holy shit, that was awesome. Like, I think about the rest of the night. I mean, like, some of the conversations, because until you get to that point, I went through that phase in my career where I was the man and I knew it all and everything. You get grounded real quick. And so when you're learning still, it's awesome. It's an awesome feeling, and you're connecting with people, and it's really fun to do.
Yeah, right now we honestly don't know what we want it to be, right? It's really a hobby for us at this point, but yeah, we're taking the approach that we are taking. Look at our first couple guests. We've had some really heavy hitters. To your point, we have been targeting more of the CEOs, but we've been doing it in a way where it feels like we're sitting at a nice steak dinner, and I literally just set a microphone down on the table. I'm not doing some formal line of questioning. It's literally just, we're having a beer, but we're just having a beer with a very successful CEO, right? So you think of like the Kevin Nolan, Ted Alling, we had Craig Fuller on, Doug Wagner. So we've got some really heavy hitters on there. Like I said, we're not talking necessarily nitty gritty freight. I mean, it is based in freight. Obviously, we all come from freight. So there's a flavor to it, and it's all based in that. But it's really more generalized, just business strategy, career path, and those sorts of things. And it's just really us being very inquisitive minds about just getting real as deep as these people are willing to go, and just some really candid conversations that we've had, even Andrew too, sharing about his journey and what's been happening with him over the last couple of months. It's really about being raw, being open, and just being vulnerable in a sense, right, to our audience, and just letting them connect with just, hey, I don't care that, yeah, maybe this guy's running a multi-billion-dollar company. We're all just people at the end of the day. We're all dealing with the same issues, the same problems. We're all asking ourselves the same questions. And so we try to find a bridge there to connect those CEOs that maybe you think are living this completely different life. And in reality, when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, yeah, of course they are in certain aspects of it, but in a lot of ways, we're very similar. And I think it's important and almost empowering for people to hear those lessons and be like, man, I can. It's the idea for us is it's to be inspired and be like, man, I could do this. Hey, if that guy can do it, I could do it, and those sorts of things. And so that's really the I guess the gist and core at what we're trying to get at.
Plus, that's something you guys are strong in too. I mean, Andrew served as very top executive. You were high, very high up there for a long time in an enterprise shipper. I mean, so that's just kind of like me too. I got to dabble in it and still do, but I'm just one that I know what I'm strong in. I'm good at leadership. The conversations we got to have and the things that from the executive side are cool. They will at work first. I mean, but I'm still one that like you'll never really catch me in my office. I got a full desk. I want to be out there and involved in things, and so it's kind of nice to hear that too. I mean, you guys are on, go after strengths and some of those guys. I mean, like Evan Nolan, we've had him on. I've known him for a long time. He's the same way. He's just like talking to a regular dude, and it's right. You start to realize that. Same thing. I was talking to Andrew, and I've got to have good conversations with him, and we started off, with that type of thing. I think our first guest ever, Tony, that was Jolly.
Was it?
Well, I think it was. Wasn't it Chris Jolly?
I'll have to go back and check.
The back our first. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And we started getting to where like we were having like multiple guests on. So like we would have somebody that was like super important or something, like some CEO, but like he'd be on with like it'd be like him, Tim Dooner, Trey Griggs, and somebody else. Like and then back then we had 4 hosts. There'd be like 8 of us on. I had this big conversation, and it was like nice because it wasn't like solely focused on one person. It was like a bounce back of and with a general topic of like leadership maybe, and each person kind of went around the room and talked about their experiences, and it was a really cool startup and way to get an idea of what we wanted to do, and we still don't really know what we want to do, and we don't really want to decide it.
As we don't rehearse or plan this. It's really off the cuff. We're just talking.
I do have to give, since you mentioned Chris, I do have to give him some credit actually for the Freight Pod being in existence. He was a guy that, I knew, when he started up, and, we kept in touch, and I'd send him a text, man, I really want to do something here. I really want to, start posting on LinkedIn. I really want to get my voice out there. He's like, well, then just do it.
I was going to say,
he would say that every single time.
I know exactly what his answer would be.
Exactly. Just do it. And so actually I want to say he texted me earlier this week, and he just like, congrats, man. The hardest step was just getting started, and you did it. And I was like, thank you for pushing me, because you just kept, holding me accountable and saying, hey, you say you're going to do this, so do it. So he's definitely, I have to give him a little credit for that.
I don't know how he does that every day. And Trey is awesome too, but man, he wants to do 47 podcasts every day. And that's like, dude, that is way too much for me. I don't like talking that much. And
but he committed to it, and I think, right. I always talk about it, and I know Chris well, so he's not really offended by this or anything, but when everything first started, coming off of Matt Gaines and everything, that's where we all met each other, and it was all of a sudden this guy's calling himself the Freight Coach. And we're all young guns, successful, So me and Brandon Bay are talking. Brandon's like, this guy's like a goober, like calling himself the Freight Coach, and everything. And you're just unsure about it. And then you have a conversation with the dude, and you're like, he gets it, man. He just gets it. Yeah. And then not only does he get it, and you can have a great conversation with him, but he's very articulate too. He's very well spoken, and how he approaches things, and then he's driven enough to say, hey. I remember when he was first starting, and I was, we were kind of on the same path and back and forth talking, and he's like, hey, sorry, man, I text you back. I was out delivering pizzas. And I'm like, what? He's like, well, yeah, man, I got, a wife and a kid, and I'm growing a business. It's not really bringing in revenue yet. But so he was, doing this during the day and then out delivering pizzas at night.
Right.
Like that's when I was like, damn, this dude is serious, and he's not, and he knows his shit. So, that's why he's there. It's not by accident. It's not by, happenstance. It's because, he took what he knows and he said, hey, at the time, I think XPO was holding him to a non-compete or whatever. And he said, hey, I'm going to make the most of this, sling some pies at night and talk to some guys during the day. And that's what he did. And it made him, what he is now. And I think not just he's humble. He's not out, saying, oh, look at me, look at me. He's involved and he helps people. And that's why people like him.
I talk to Chris almost every day. And there's a couple guys that I just feed off of, bounce everything through. And since TJ doesn't answer my textuses, Chris is one of those guys.
Some of us aren't making nachos. Some of us are actually working.
Shut up. Leadership. Servant leadership. That's what it's called. Everybody needs nachos.
One chip at a time.
One chipment. Anyway.
Oh!
You like that? I got that one. Got it. Jolly's one of those guys that I learned to go to for advice and help because he really is like the freight coach. He'll encourage you like a coach would, but he knows enough stuff to tell you, yeah, you're thinking down the right path. And that's what I would do. And, like TJ, if I was going to go into brokerage, he's doing it like I would do it. Like I agree with TJ in the way he handles freight because that's how I would do it. It's the right way. It's relational. It's transactional with a relationship. You can't just offer great service at this price. You have to offer competitive price and then an excellent service when the next guy is just capacity, so you have to add that value that isn't there for the other benefit. Right. So if you can provide that value and Chris is that guy, I try and do a shout out every Monday about people that I know that are in this gig that are doing it right. People that I know that are doing it the way I would want it done. I've had people that come to me like, Renee Matthews from Onyx Freight, and I have no connection to her whatsoever other than she reached out and asked for help. And I'm like, man, as a leader, as a manager, as a team leader, everything that I've ever wanted from a team member is to come ask for more. People that want to learn are so easy to mold and work with. And when she did that, I was like, are you serious? For real? Like you want help? You want to be better? She was like, absolutely. I want life-changing thing for me and my boys. And I was like, I'll tell you what I think works. And she's like, okay, cool. So she's trying all this stuff and it was just great. We went back and forth and I'm like, all right. And that's what got me to do the shout out because I realized that there's nothing I can do about the bad guys, but I can at least applaud the good ones and the people that are trying, the people that are full of integrity, the people that are wanting to really provide a genuine value and service at a fair market price instead of just like, how can I cash in today?
So and it's not just that though, Tony. I mean, like you do that, but what you don't understand, Tony, is that, a lot of what people may do or how they may, represent or themselves or approach things, they've learned from it. They've learned pieces of it, and I think about that, when you say, hey, TJ does things the way I do it if I was a broker. Listen, I could book the hell out of freight back when I was just, an account manager, just a broker, right? But at the end of the day, like I told Eric, or Paul at the beginning, I was like, man, I didn't even ask him for freight for the first year and a half. Probably that weird, and it never really did. I think you called me one day, you needed help with the lane or something, but whatever it was, it was like, yeah, and it was like, but I had learned a lot from you on what you expected, what you liked from brokers and everything like that, and so I was able to adjust what I was doing and how I was speaking to my close shippers. And so I just remember having conversations with some of them and really getting confident about it. Like having conversations with shippers and being like, hey, I know you're dealing with this, and I know this is what's going on. And this is what I do. And this is why. And I would bring you up. And, I've got a friend who's shipper, we talk all the time and I try to really get into the weeds in there. And it was kind of one of those things where, your influence, because there's so few of you out there doing this. Paul, you now included, right? I mean, like, there's so few people in the shipping center that are out doing this. They like to lay. I love it. I always talk to some. They love laying back in the weeds, and they'll follow you, right? They won't hit like or comment or anything. They know that and they sit back there and they watch the broker versus the carrier, right? And all these comments and everything like that, and like knowing they're probably the stem of a lot of it, but like. Or if they came out and explained things, maybe people would. But no, they sit back there and they just like like that Michael Jackson meme eating his popcorn, and watch it, which is fine because at the end of the day, a lot of them don't have a ton to gain by a bigger network, right? Don't have a ton to gain by that type of thing. And so what you guys are doing really at the end of the day is just kind of out of your own, love for, education and learning and the industry in general. And I think that's pretty cool because, when I started approaching it that way too, and not looking at like what I could gain from it, except for me learning more, like me coming out and never saying, hey, I know what, I know this and that. Am I experienced? Am I good in some? Am I confident? Yes. Do I know everything? No. And I'll never say that I do. That's why I still do this.
I think that's what, there's just no matter, I've been doing this for a while, and you just run into so many people that are so passionate about this industry, myself, Andrew included. And everywhere you go, you just run into people that are passionate about it. And it's kind of mind blowing because it's almost like if you're in the industry, but if you're an outsider, you're looking in and you're just going like, okay, all you guys are doing is moving. Yeah. You're moving freight around. It's like, this is no big deal. Right. And it's like, and we're having this conversation about this, Chris, and everybody, it's like, you're almost, as large as the industry is, it's also small in a way, right? Like you're no more than 1 or 2 degrees of separation from knowing everybody, right? I definitely know somebody that knows this person that knows that person. And so it's still kind of it has a small, intimate feel to it. And there's so many things that are happening within our space today, when you start talking about technology and all those different things, and we're kind of it feels like we're going through this renaissance and we're learning a ton. And we're not going to get better as an industry unless we're having open, honest conversations with one another. And so, that's part of it for me too. It's like, I've learned a ton of stuff in my time doing this. I want to share what I have, and I want to learn from other people as well. And together and having those conversations collectively as an industry, we're all going to get better. And that's really kind of what drives us.
PJ, are you awake?
Like you said, the passion for it gets in you. There's nothing you can do about it. Am I breaking in and out? Is that me or is that you guys?
I got you. Oh, okay. I got you.
Can you hear me?
Yep. It's my reliable.
Is it you breaking out, Tony? Okay, sorry. But that passion that you said, it gets in you. There's nothing you can do about it once it gets in you. You're all about it. It's why, me and Tony started the Northern Indiana Transportation Club. We do this, and for junior achievement, I go and speak to people. When I go speak at these, because like you said, it's like you want to share your kind of your journey. Because God, I wish I could go back to the 25-year-old me and say, dude, you're going into a tunnel, right? You know that you're being told there's a light at the end, right? But you're blindfolded, so you can't see the light. But as long as you keep moving forward, you're going to bump into things. You can't see where you're going, but as long as you keep moving forward, you're fine. You'll get there. There are people that don't want to do it. They get halfway through, they're like, I don't see any end to this, or I don't see where this is going, or whatever it is, because they haven't, bought in, haven't got all the way in. And when you buy in and you go 100% all in, and you start seeing that success, man, it sticks with you. And then you're on the road. Then like Paul saying, now my dad, I can't even talk. If I bring up truck or freight or anything, my dad's like, stop. I don't want to hear it. Because he doesn't get it, Yeah. And I'm right. Like, you see that over there? Like you see the axles on that, you know why you drop that down, and like we'll be on the road. He's like, I don't care, TJ, and I'll be like, well, hey, are those drop trailers over there? What's it say on the side of it? Like, who's that carrier in there? And he's like, I don't care, So it's like you get to that point where you're so passionate about it, and you want to find somebody who has that same thing because you can relate. You don't feel weird talking about it because nobody else gets it. They're just like, oh, logistics, like you just like arrange semis and move freight. Like, I wish I could describe it, but yes,
I'll tell you guys. So when I coming up in this industry, I felt like everybody that I would talk to, and maybe this is still the case to a degree, but not nearly as much. I'd say like, how did you end up in this space? Like, how did you end up in transportation? And almost, I would say 9 times out of 10, it was basically by accident. Like, hey, I couldn't get another job, so I landed this, or I thought I was applying for this job, but it was actually this. And so it's like, and then everybody gets in and they're just like, oh, wait a minute. Like this industry is awesome. Right. It's cool. And I have that story as well. I came in from, graduating from college and saying like, okay, I didn't do any internships coming out of school. I don't really have that many connections. I got this one business card from this local business guy that came in and spoke in my marketing class. I think I have that business card somewhere. Let me see where it is. Right. Dig it out of my drawer, send him an email and he goes, yeah, why don't you come in tomorrow? Let's talk. It's a manufacturer. And I go in the next day and basically doesn't even interview me, just like, hey, look, we're desperate for people with the breath like that can breathe, that are alive. So you'll do. And they're just like, we've got a role in customer service and we've got a role in transportation. And so, like, doing the math in my head real quick, I go, okay, so customer service is being on the phone all day, getting yelled at by customers. That doesn't sound awesome. Transportation, has something to do with trucks, but I'm not really like, that's the mystery box. So I got getting yelled at on the phone all day or the mystery box. I'll take the mystery box. And that was basically my start in transportation and logistics. And then 15 years later, here I am still doing it. Right. So, I'm fascinated by the different stories like that. Like, everyone's got their story like that needs to be told. And then the other part too, is now with these younger people and a lot of the tech firms and stuff are bringing such unique and interesting people into the space that were never here before, from tech backgrounds and software and all these sorts of things, or people that are going to school wanting to, like, knowing in their mind, I want to come into logistics and transportation. That was like such a foreign concept to me. And so now you've got these really intelligent people in the space that are still coming up and learning. Let's call it, we were like the last, we're kind of like the veterans in the space now, like teaching these young people. And that's something I'm really passionate about. And like I said, through the podcast, we hope to educate ourselves in the process, but I just love those types of stories.
Yeah, I'm definitely tuning in. I'm going to have to catch up on them too, because I know you've had more than one. You're about 4 or 5, are you?
We're on episode number 5 coming out next week. So
I've been closely watching because, I mean, again, like I said, I want to hear Silver's conversation on stuff. He's just been around. He's been everywhere, and he's been so in depth in everything that I want to learn. And I think that's what makes you good in this industry, no matter what side of the coin you're on or side of the truck tire or whatever you want to call it. But anybody who wants to learn, it's all right there. All you got to do is go ask, and people will be like, oh, hey, great. That's awesome. Let me tell you what I do. And then they'll tell you what my friend does. And then they'll tell you. So anybody that wants to learn is a hero in this industry, because there's so many people that don't want to learn that are in this industry that, like, to achieve greatness, it doesn't take a ton of effort, even though this job is hard and takes plenty.
Well, so one of the things that really fascinates me is, think about like a finance position or something in not accounting, but like really a finance job, right? Goldman Sachs, a lot of these companies, and you get these Ivy Leaguers that go into these brokerages, right? And they want to go in there in their suit and ties, their slick back hair, and they're going to go in there and they're going to make a ton of money, right? And good for them. I think, if you look in the transportation and logistics space, there's just as much money to be had there, but it's being done by, and TJ, no offense, but the guy in the beanie and the board shorts and sandals making the same money as the guy on Wall Street, right? And so it's like, it's almost like this white collar versus blue collar space where it's just, it seems like transportation, like everything's equal, educational background. It's really comes down to grit, determination, effort, and you can be hyper successful. And I just genuinely think kids in college or just like looking for careers don't understand how much opportunity exists in this space. It's like mind-boggling to me. And if they gave it a shot, I think everybody would be absolutely blown away and shocked by how successful a career they could have in this space.
We just did a manufacturing.
And that's where I feel.
Shut up, TJ. Hold on. We just did a manufacturing day at our plant yesterday, and I had like between 80 and 100 8th graders, and they came in there, and they did the tour around the plant and what they were doing and all that, and I got lucky, right?
Oh, so your education level.
Perfect. So I got to show them trucks, right? And down on my level, these 8th graders understood that, hey, what do you guys consider a good pay for a year? And they were like, I don't know, 40,000. I'm like, okay, so like the national average is like 55, and they're like, yeah, 40,000. I'm like, what? Don't you want to make more than the average? And they're like, okay, yeah, like 50. I'm like, okay. I had some guy like $500 million. I'm like, hey, I like this guy. I want to work with him. But I got to go through this and watch their excitement and say, hey, man, as a truck driver, you can make $100,000. And they're like, what? No way. I'm like, yes, it's actually not that hard. You can really go out there and do this. I said, and there's other sides in freight and shipping. If you want to work with people, you can deal with people all day long if you want to. If you don't want to work with anybody, you can go solo and strong solo surgery all day long and all night long. It was
Elk
cool to
Grove
be able to
Village,
share
shout
that.
out.
Shout out, Sergi. It was
Shout
just
out Elk Grove Village.
right. It was super cool to be able to share that with these kids and put a little bit of something in them, knowing that there's more than high school, college, Cube Farm.
Yeah.
No doubt.
No, it's important, and it's weird because it's, you know, growing up. I mean, my dad was a teacher. You know, he's a very successful coach, but you know, my mom was basically a secretary, and so, you know, yeah, again, you know, I thought, you know, I'm going to go to school for athletic training because I love sports, and I'm going to make $45K a year, and then I'm going to be great, and I'm going to go to grad school for physical therapy, and then maybe I can make $60K and be awesome, and you know, and those are bad goals. They're not. You know, but I was always just kind of taught growing up, like, you know, you could go make a ton of money or whatever, but like, you know, the people I know that do, don't, you know, they're not happy, they don't love their jobs, or they just work all the time, and then you start getting in the industry, and you're like, you get those first couple bonus checks, you're like, first of all, I freaking love what I do. I'm good at it. And I just got a bonus check for how much? What? Like, I get, and then all of a sudden it just clicks, and it's like, boom.
Wait, say that again? Like, I'm on the shipper side. A what? Now, check?
A bonus check.
So here's the cool thing about
not
freight.
familiar.
You can make a lot of money in some aspects of freight, or you can.
Hey, I'm still on. I gotta go to the video, but I'm still here. Hang on a second.
So you can
I'm
have
still
a lot of money in some aspects of freight, or you can have a lot of power and enough money, or you can have somewhere in between if you go there. But shippers have a lot of power, but we don't make all the money. Brokers have no power, but they have all the money. And drivers have all the work, no power, and no money. And God bless them. I was one. I did an OO thing for a while, and I was a company driver for a while. I got about 2 million miles, and I'll tell you, nobody works harder than the old school drivers that are, you know, before electronic logs, because I'll bet you 95% of the drivers out on the road did not run 10 hours a day. And
for sure.
I used to cheat.
But not everybody wants that. Not everybody wants power. Sometimes it's, for me, you know, it's kind of more influence, you know, because I look at it like, you know,
I meant leverage. You know what I mean? Like
I was making. Right. No, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying I am making now more than I ever thought I would. Right. But it's like, at the same time, you know, you go into leadership, you know, and you work your way up and you get this influence, because I want to help people like that were like me to realize that, hey, man, like I could do this. I could do these sets. There's no better feeling for me. Like, yes, it's a great feeling when you cover 7 shipments and you make X amount of margin that day and you go home and you feel great about it, right? But like, it's even a better feeling when you get a text from somebody and they're like, man, you're the best boss I've ever had. And man, I appreciate you teaching me, you know, you're the OG, you know, because they're just learning. They think you're great, but they're learning, and you see them thrive. And now all of a sudden their families are set up and they're doing better than they ever thought they could. And they're being able to get a new house for their new kid that they're having. And, you know, when they first started, they were struggling, and that right there, because I'll tell you right now, I could be a vice president and make less than some of the dudes I know that just sling freight. I mean, there's guys out there making $250,000, $300K a year just slinging freight, and hey, and they don't want to. They don't want to go in leadership. They love what they do. That's great. You know, so it's kind of a choice sometimes. Like, hey, a lot of times when you go into leadership, you kind of make less money. You know, or it's a little bit longer path too. I mean, like, you know, usually your incentive is you're paid maybe off of what the office is doing or a group is doing. And so that's your incentive as well. But like, you start to see people grow and develop, and it's kind of a different type of path, but it's still, you know, successful in different ways. It's how you define that success.
What do you do? Are you changing for real?
Tony, you don't worry about me. You just worry about your internet.
Oh my gosh, my internet sucks. I explain it too much. I'll quit, but it skips out all the time. And I have the big name provider and the highest service package they have, and it always cuts out.
Okay, so we're gonna go into a good topic here that I want you guys to touch on. You guys will see my beautiful face here again in a second. Tony, why don't you tell people, Tony, what are me and you doing next? Oh God, I guess it's next September. Holy shit, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's a year from.
What are we doing together in Houston?
Freight Fest. We're gonna take this on the road or something like that. I don't know. We haven't really figured out what we're gonna do, but we're gonna go there and do something.
Yep. So we'll be we'll be speaking there at Freight Fest 2024.
It'll
Me
be
and him.
planned
And it's
and
gonna be,
rehearsed and for once.
No. We'll have an outline. You know me, I can't stick to a script. But it'll
That's
flow.
what I meant.
But the point is, it's going to be a good dynamic. It's going to be that, shipper broker. I've been on carrier side too. Good conversation.
Me telling
And
people what
kind
you
of
still have a
do that
comb.
type of thing. Correct. But Paul, why don't you touch on it first? And then Tony, you guys can kind of bounce off each other. But for a lot of these brokers out there, and this is something we want to touch on. We're going to put together the presentation. We got a year to do it. So, but and we'll probably be at other ones before then. But when a broker is really wanting to be successful, and I think I have to look back on it now and say to myself, all right, what made me successful as a broker is that I started on the carrier side. I was, dispatching trucks, and then ended up, helping run the fleet and doing all that stuff. So when I came on the broker side, and then we have to get back calls, right? So I had to deal with brokers. So I knew what it took to, and when I was brokering something, it was on the expedite world. So I had a little different bring up, but like those guys that are just coming in right in, say, just being thrown into it, saying, hey, call shippers and get customers. Paul, what's your advice to somebody when it comes to that? And maybe they're struggling, especially right now in this market.
Trying to land an enterprise shipper customer?
Yeah.
Not even enterprise.
Ooh.
Just
or just a ship.
that.
All right.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
See, this is where your money's well earned, right? We just talked about, the carriers or brokers make all the money. This is where you earn the money, right? Because it's very difficult to do. I mean, I've been asked this question so many times. I don't have great answers because I can give you perspective. Okay. And that perspective is, I work for an organization that shipped over 1 million truckloads a year. Okay. That's a ton of freight we're moving, all full truckload. And so we got a huge target on our back. Well, what does that mean? That means dozens of emails a day. It means phone calls. It means sometimes somebody finds my cell phone number, and geez, when that happens, that's nightmarish. It means LinkedIn messages. It means, right. And it's like, I have respect that these people need to do their jobs, right? They're trying to feed their families. They're trying to make a living. They're trying to make a name for themselves. So I absolutely respect that. The challenge is that, on the other side, they have to respect and understand that we are being bombarded, especially in a market like this, getting absolutely bombarded by everybody under the sun, right? To do freight. So, so what are some things that can be done? Okay. Well, just some really basic things really that come to mind, right? And you see some of these, let's start with solicitation emails, right? It's pretty obvious to me now, having done this for as long as I have, how much effort is being put into that solicitation. Is it a copy and paste and you just blasted that out to 1,000 people? And
Yes.
maybe you changed the name, right? But maybe that you changed the name, but you changed the name is a different color font than the body of the email. So you literally just went and deleted the name and put the next name and kept going. You spelled names wrong, spelled company names wrong. I mean, it's just like, if you just grade the effort, right? And I could just tell you on average, 95% of the solicitations that I receive are very poorly executed. Very little effort is put into it. So the minute that somebody comes in, and you can tell they put in some effort, they researched my LinkedIn, they researched my company, they maybe scan the data and they say, hey, I saw some of your lanes that were hitting spot, right? Just put in some work. I'm much more of a quality over quantity when it comes to that. And I think the vast majority of the industry is quantity over quality. So you want to stand out, start with a quality solicitation.
Oh my gosh, Paul!
I love that you said that.
I love that.
Wait, before you go, Tony.
No,
Tony, because I know
I've
this is
been
going to be
saying this for years. Ever since we started this, I've been saying this, and somebody else who we don't know and did not prep or prompt came in and said that exact same thing. And I tell them it's 99% of the emails. And LCI is not Lions Club Industries. I work at Lippert. I get that email. I got one today.
The Lions Club.
Lions Club.
Lions Den.
Someday when I work there, I'm going to have a great batch of brokers ready to take care of our business, whatever they do.
But,
all right, TJ, go.
No, sorry. I love that you said that. I love that that's what you said, because that's what I preach. And that's why I've had success. And even with new reps with it, because I can't stand the 100 dials. You're wasting time. I'm just so much about efficiency, man. And I'm saying to myself, all right, what am I good at? Right? What areas? What type of freight? What type of equipment? what do I know about these shippers, right? What do I know they may struggle with? Do they have drop trailers? Do they struggle with this? Do they struggle with appointments? What are these things? And you have to have kind of a template email, I think, but half of it is highlighted, as in where you're going to put in specific information, right? And the research, I always say, like, you go Google stuff, you could go look it up here and there, but if you can research within your own TMS and look at what your company is good at and what you can and what you have been doing, and actually see where your network is, see where your trucks are, see what your people are good at and what you've done, that right there goes such a long way to say, hey, Paul, I know, I'm reaching out, I'm TJ Knudsen, Arner Express. I've got I know you're running, freight out of here and here. I've got experience with it. And I know one thing about shippers too, is when you bring up companies that are similar to theirs, they all know who does what, and I've had a lot of success working with this person and this person. So it's very similar. I know you may struggle with this, not saying you do, but we've done a good job of put the process together for this. I just want to see, if it's worth it, maybe hopping on a call and discover it, maybe discover it more. And that's something that not only are you sending it out to Paul, who's running the enterprise shipping, but you're sending it out to, shippers at the shipping level too. The guys that are struggling, that are saying, all right. And what do? They say, man, I could use somebody like this. He understands. I'm going to forward on to the guy, the powers that be. I'm going to connect you with them, and then you guys run from there. Not only do they think it, kind of makes it look good, they're not passing the opportunity. They may not get hit as much, but it's also like a way in which you're separating yourself from all those mundane emails that everybody's sending out over and over and over again. And that's the turnover. You see all this turnover. It's just, it was busy. It was asses in seats. Like you said, if you had a pulse and you could send an email, that's what it was.
Well, I'm going to share two perspectives, and especially, and learning a lot, by the way, through this podcast. So one is the story from Kevin Nolan and NTG, what he calls the ground and pound, right? So he is all about dialing for dollars. And guess what? That works very well for him. He built a very, very successful company doing that. So I can't knock it. You just asked my personal preference. It's not that, but it certainly has its place in the market, and you can be successful doing it. On the other side, Andrew tells a story with one of our guests with the most creative sales strategies he's had. And he said, look, you go on people's LinkedIn, a lot of people will provide some really unique insights. Like, for example, you go on mine, it'll tell you I'm a level 2 on Duolingo Spanish. It'll tell you that I coach Little League Baseball, right? Those are interesting factoids about my life and what I do. You can use that information. He, for example, found a shipper he was targeting that does like fishing in the Everglades of Florida somewhere. So what does he do? He goes and books a trip on this guy's a fishing excursion just so he can get on the boat with the guy for 4 hours to pitch him his company, right? Brilliant, genius idea, right? So, I mean, there's many ways you can kind of go about it. It's really like what works for your personality. But I've seen success in all different approaches.
Well,
but whatever your approach is, you got to be all in. Like, you got to be all in. Like,
100%.
If you're all in, and it gets to that's where I always say quality over quantity. And I think it depends also what the market's doing. Like the ground and pound's going to work in certain times, right, compared to others, right? But and it'll work too. But you got to be all in on that and what fits you. But that right there, something like that, where it's like, hey, I remember being there, and we got to the point where it was like, we'd have a competition. Like, hey, I really want to land this account. How do I figure this out? And it bugs you, and you're like, man, I really want to get to the right person. I know who he is. I've sent him 9 emails. I answered. I've given him calls. And there was a guy. He was up in Detroit area, big account. Even the owner's like, man, you land this one, you're solid for whatever. And I couldn't figure it out. So I go and I look him up on Facebook, and he just had put out a post saying, happy anniversary, my wife. 10 years. It's 10-year anniversary. We didn't go anywhere fancy. You know what? Our first date, and she knows my favorite meal. We went to Applebee's so I could get the Fiesta lime chicken, and we were just as happy as we were on day one. And so I sent an email out. I wait a couple days. And I sent an email to him. I said, hey, I'm going to be up in your area. Because we were really big on the press the flesh too. Like, go meet people in person.
Right.
I was like, hey, I'm going to be in your area. I wanted to see if maybe you wanted to, grab lunch on me. I'm a big Fiesta lime chicken guy at Applebee's. I know that's not like, the most fancy thing ever, but maybe a 2 for $20 and a Brutus, and we could chat. And the dude hit me back like within 5 minutes. I mean, I've been chasing this guy forever. And he has no idea how I would have known that. I didn't add him on Facebook. I just went and saw his post. And sometimes that's what it takes. It's just that, how do I get in front of this guy? how do I get to be able to have a conversation? Because sometimes I think about that. It's like, man, if I could just have a conversation with somebody, I'm in. But I got to have that. How do I get that? And sometimes it just takes that little bit of extra, how do I get to them? There was one that we were going after, huge account, and nobody could figure it out. And I just went on their freaking website one day and went down to the bottom where it says contact us. And there's just a box that you just type in, it's just a generic email. And I basically put in there like, hey, I need to get in contact with your, head of logistics. Cause I had talked to some people before, and, I'm supposed to be going up there next week, and I don't have, and like the next day somebody answered back. They're like, oh, hey, thanks for reaching out. Here's all our contacts. This guy's the guy you want to talk to, this guy, this, that, and that. And I'm like, how the hell did that work? And then I'm thinking it's going to work. So I try it again. And the next time the people are like, don't ever contact us about that again or something, but there's times that it'll work. You got to shoot your shot. And if you're all bought in, whether you're doing ground and pound, whether you're doing specific quality over quantity, whatever it is, if you're all in, you will get business.
Totally agreed.
I like what you said about the ground and pound.
2 for 20.
I'm with you. I have no shame in the game with the guys that are out there smiling and dialing, but I'm like you. That doesn't work for me. That shouldn't even be in shipping. There's tons of guys out there that will pick that up and be like, oh, okay. And then that may be a great way to do it. And I mean, Kevin Nolan built an empire that way, so good for him. But I am of the mindset like you, where you gotta go do your homework. You gotta find out that I like Applebee's chicken.
But by the way, one thing I will say, I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but sometimes you just got to catch the person it's just a matter of timing.
Yep.
You got to catch them on the right day, right? Like the last carrier that I talked to,
I'm ready to say yes to someone.
And, and I was very candid with them. I said, I would not have even responded to your email, but you caught me at the absolutely perfect time, and I decided to respond. And now we're up and running, right? So,
yep. I
mean, I might bring on a handful of carriers a year, and he caught me on the perfect time at the perfect day. So, I don't have the answers, to be honest with you guys, right? It's just sometimes it's dumb luck, sometimes
it is
effort. It's all kinds of things. So
it's sometimes Absolutely. It is that perfect time, and sometimes if you kind of stay in a niche, I always talk about being a niche, but like something you're good at, you can kind of understand that. I talk to people like, I know that when I reach out to this type of shipper that ships this type of freight, Thursdays are terrible for them, because I know they're trying to get all their freight covered, and then they spend all Friday morning basically trying to recover what was supposed to go for the weekend that isn't covered, or recover it, right? So that Friday afternoon for them is a good time. Or, Tuesdays, or, I know through this, because sometimes you go through a 3PL, say Ryder handles a certain freight, whatever it is. I know they have meetings on Tuesdays mornings, and it's not good to reach out over it. So it's like experience can help. Mondays they're swamped or whatever. And that's a good time to say, hey, this is probably the best time to reach out, schedule your emails, but follow up and just say, hey, and I a lot of times let them know, like, hey, I'm going to follow up again, on this day or this time or whatever. And so they know it's coming. So at least give me a no, maybe, but give me something. And that usually works. I like to play the ping pong effect, where I can reference something. I send an email first and then I call, right? A lot of times they don't answer because they're busy. I get the voicemail. Hey, just wanted to see if you got my voice, or if you got my email.
$100.
Right?
Paul,
now they don't
you
answer.
Never answer
so
the
then
phone, do you?
Now,
I don't even have a desk phone anymore.
I don't either.
So my follow-up email then is, hey, I just left you a voicemail. Right. And then my follow-up call then is, hey, I just left you an email. So you always have something to kind of reference. And like you said, it doesn't just show, tenacity, it shows effort. It shows you put some effort in.
I will say, you guys were talking about the conferences are great too, right? Sometimes it's, and you mentioned, what did you say? Like touch and flesh. I'm saying that wrong, but
press the flesh.
Yeah, just press the flesh. Right. And so getting into those conferences, and sometimes it's just, hey, you happen to grab a beer and you connect with somebody. You can talk shop a little bit, okay, like assess, because at the end of the day, it's like, hey, anybody can find a truck. Anybody, for the most part, solutions are like 95% the same. It's really the person that's running the account. How much do they care about your freight? Maybe they add some additional nuances. Can they be kind of like a consultant to my business, where they can help add value and drive costs out of my supply chain, right? By just having really good experience in that way. And so sometimes you have those types of conversations, right? When you're at one of those conferences or something, and you have, man, this guy really knows what he's talking, or, this lady really knows what she's talking about, and you kind of connect on that level. And so that's, like I said, there's a myriad of different ways, but
Yeah, I'm gonna have to hit you up after this for real because I know you got to go a little bit before our time ends, and we usually just keep going, but with no regard to time. But I'm definitely gonna have to hit you up. We need to have another talk off the record, maybe.
Let's do it.
Swap some more stories.
I'm open.
TJ, are you coming back, or we gotta
little did
wrap
you know, Tony's actually a broker, just posing as a shipper.
Is that it?
Yeah. I'll be reaching out tomorrow.
Genius, isn't it? He's genius.
It is. Yeah. My alter ego. My mom told me I could be.
No, you got to understand. You know, connections can be
jerk.
Connections are connections. You know what I mean? Like, you got to understand that too. And you know, Andrew. So there's this account that I've always wanted. I had like, you know, kind of something. It had started originally in my like kind of like hometown, like where I went to college, and then it grew, and it was $1 billion company, right? And we were sitting there talking in Vegas at the bar, you know, 3 a.m, and I'm like, man, I've got other buddies too that, you know, we'll swap contacts and accounts. You know, there's enough freight out there to go around. So I'm like, dude, that's my great white buffalo. You know, right. He's like, what? And I'm like, great white buffalo. And he's like, I'm like, dude, I've always wanted to land that account. I've tried everything, man. He's like, oh, we've got it. I'm like, what? He's like, oh yeah, they go through this. He's like, I'll hook you up with the guy.
Right.
I'm like, seriously? He's like, dude, they have so much freight. It's a drop of the bucket. He's like, don't come and take my shit, but yeah, I'll get you in contact. See if you can work out in a certain area or something, you know? And I'm like, sweet. Well, I got this, you know, I can hook you up with somebody or whatever it is. And, you know, those types of connections too. I mean, they really do help. I mean, just having those conversations and talking shop with whoever you can, you never know what's going to come out of it.
100%. Absolutely.
So, well, hey, listen, I know you got to run. Paul, I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
These types of conversations, again, we usually have like kind of talking points that we may not even end up getting to, you know, because we just end up having a good conversation and moving forward with it. But that's kind of what this is all about. People like to get involved in that and share theirs and listen to it and even go back and watch it, you know, the replays on YouTube and stuff. But we appreciate you coming on. Another great guest, another great, you know, conversation. And, you know, we got to have you back on again. You and Tony can go talk shop and go over his, you know, experience at TQL. He's been there for 4 years in the drayage department. So, you know, that'll be good for you guys.
No, I'm really glad you came on too, Paul, because I've been saying these things that you just said. And like, as you know, we didn't even get on more than like 2 or 3 minutes before we went live. And I've been saying this stuff since we started like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's cool to have somebody else come on and say exactly what I was saying.
You.
And
God, his internet sucks.
Yeah.
But so
it was great it was great to meet you guys. Thanks for having me on. And like I said, for your viewers, listeners, check out the Freight Pod. We're committed to an episode every week. We've been releasing on Tuesday mornings, and we intend to do so for the foreseeable future. So we're excited for what we're doing, and appreciate you having me on.
I got to
go ahead. Paul Estrada or Andrew Silver. You can find it there. Then once you obviously find the Freight Pod, you can follow that, and don't miss those because those are great conversations.
I'm going to be listening to episode 1 on my way to work tomorrow.
Awesome. Let me know what you think.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, guys, take it easy.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.